The air was thick with dust, and the beam of my flashlight sliced through it like a knife, illuminating the crumbling walls of Danvers State Asylum. I stood frozen in the doorway of a room we weren't supposed to find, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The whispers started the moment we pried open the rusted metal door low, unintelligible murmurs that seemed to seep from the walls themselves, curling around my name like a cold hand. "Elliot," they hissed, soft and deliberate, though no one else in our group seemed to hear it. My knees buckled, and I gripped the doorframe, the peeling paint flaking under my fingers. This wasn't what I signed up for when I joined my friends to explore this abandoned hellhole in rural Pennsylvania. I'm a 24-year-old grad student, not some ghost hunter chasing cheap thrills. But standing there, with those whispers clawing at my mind, I knew we'd stumbled into something we couldn't walk away from. It was October 2025, and the four of us, me, my girlfriend Sarah, my roommate Jake, and his cousin Mia, had been urban exploring for about a year. We were a tight-knit crew, bonded over late-night study sessions and a shared obsession with the abandoned and forgotten. Danvers State Asylum had been on our radar for months. Built in 1878, it was a sprawling Gothic nightmare, all jagged spires and boarded-up windows, infamous for its brutal history. In the early 20th century, it housed thousands of patients, many subjected to lobotomies, electroshock, and worse. By the 1980s, it was shuttered, left to rot after reports of neglect and mysterious deaths. Locals swore the place was cursed, and online forums buzzed with stories of flickering lights and screams echoing through the woods. Naturally, we couldn't resist. We'd driven out on a chilly Saturday night, the kind where the moon hangs low and the air smells like damp leaves and decay. The asylum loomed on a hill, its silhouette black against the starless sky. Jake, always the fearless one, led the way, his crowbar glinting as he pried open a side entrance. Sarah clung to my arm, her breath visible in the cold, her brown eyes wide with a mix of excitement and nerves. Mia, quieter but just as curious, filmed everything on her phone, her running commentary a mix of jokes and historical facts she'd dug up online. Me, I was the skeptic, always rolling my eyes at ghost stories, but I couldn't shake the unease that settled in my gut the moment we stepped inside. The asylum's interior was a maze of decay. The air smelled of mildew and something metallic, like old blood. Our footsteps echoed on cracked linoleum, and every so often, a distant drip broke the silence. We explored the main ward first, our flashlights catching glimpses of rusted bed frames and faded patient records scattered across the floor. Sarah pointed out a child's drawing pinned to a corkboard, its crayon lines smudged, but depicting a figure with hollow eyes. "Creepy," she whispered, squeezing my hand. I forced a laugh, but my skin prickled. Jake, unfazed, pushed deeper, eager to find the good stuff. Solitary confinement cells, the electroshock room, or the rumored underground tunnels. That's when we found it. A staircase half hidden behind a collapsed wall in the basement, descending into darkness. The air grew colder as we approached, and my flashlight flickered, just for a second. "Batteries," I muttered, but my voice sounded hollow. Jake was already halfway down, his silhouette swallowed by the shadows. "You guys coming or what?" he called, his tone daring us to chicken out. Sarah hesitated, but Mia was already following, her phone's light bobbing. I swallowed my dread and went after them, the whispers starting as we reached the bottom. The staircase ended at a narrow hallway, its walls lined with rusted pipes and mold. At the end was a metal door, padlocked and covered in scratches, like someone or something had tried to claw their way out. Jake, grinning like an idiot, made quick work of the lock with his crowbar. The door groaned open, revealing a small, windowless room. The air inside was stifling, heavy with a sour, almost alive smell. My flashlight swept across the space, landing on a single object in the center, a wooden chair, bolted to the floor, its armrests stained with something dark. Around it, the walls were scrawled with frantic, overlapping symbols, circles, crosses, words in a language I couldn't read. And that's when I heard it. "Elliot," the whisper came again, clearer now, like a breath against my ear. I spun around, my heart racing, but no one was there. Sarah was staring at the chair, her face pale. Jake was poking at the symbols, oblivious. Mia's phone was still recording, but her hands were shaking. "Did you guys hear that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. They looked at me, confused. "Hear what?" Sarah said, her brow furrowing. I opened my mouth to explain, but the words stuck in my throat. The whispers were louder now, a chorus of voices overlapping, some pleading, some angry. "Stay," they urged, the words stretching into a hiss. I grabbed Sarah's arm, ready to bolt, but Jake was already moving toward the chair, his curiosity outweighing any sense of self-preservation. "This is wild," he said, running his hand over the wood. "It's like a ritual setup or something." That's when the chair moved. Not much, just a slight shudder, like a twitch. Jake yanked his hand back, his grin fading. "What the hell?" he muttered. Mia's phone clattered to the floor, her eyes wide. "Did you see that?" she whispered. Sarah was gripping my arm so tightly it hurt, her nails digging into my skin. I wanted to run, to drag them all out of there, but my legs felt like lead. The whispers were relentless now, filling the room, bouncing off the walls. "Stay, stay, stay." I couldn't tell if they were in my head or real, but they were suffocating, pulling at me like quicksand. We should have left then. We should have grabbed our stuff and sprinted back to the car. But Jake, stubborn as ever, started pacing the room, his flashlight darting over the symbols. "This is some kind of ward," he said, his voice shaking but trying to sound confident. "Like, to keep something in." Mia, regaining her composure, picked up her phone and zoomed in on the walls. "These look old," she said. "Like 19th century old. Maybe older." Sarah was trembling, her breath hitching. "Elliot, I don't like this," she whispered. "Something's wrong." "I can feel it." I nodded, my mouth dry. The air was heavier now, pressing against my chest, and every shadow seemed to shift just out of sight. Then Mia gasped. Her phone screen lit up her face as she scrolled through a forum post she'd bookmarked earlier. "Guys," she said, her voice barely audible. "There's a story about this place. In 1923, a patient went missing, a woman named Clara Henshaw. They said she was dangerous, unstable. They locked her in a special room, away from the others. The records say she died, but her body was never found. And there were rumors staff saying they heard her voice, even after she was gone." Mia's eyes flicked to the chair. "They called it the Whisper Room." The name hit me like a punch. The whispers grew louder, sharper, and now I could make out words. "Clara," they said, over and over, mixed with my name. "Elliot, Clara." "Stay," my stomach churned, and I felt a cold sweat break out across my skin. Sarah was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. Jake, for once, looked scared, his bravado crumbling. "We need to go," I said, my voice cracking. But as I turned toward the door, it slammed shut with a deafening clang. The air pulsed like a heartbeat, and the symbols on the walls began to glow faintly, a sickly green light that made my head throb. Panic took over. Jake pounded on the door, shouting, but it wouldn't budge. Mia was frantically filming, muttering about evidence. Sarah was hyperventilating, clinging to me like I could protect her. I was just as terrified, my mind racing for an explanation. The whispers were a cacophony now, screaming, pleading, laughing. And then I saw it a shadow, tall and thin, forming in the corner of the room. It wasn't human, not quite. Its edges flickered, like static on an old TV, and its head tilted at an unnatural angle. My breath caught, and I stumbled back, pulling Sarah with me. "Do you see that?" I whispered. She nodded, her eyes wide with horror. The shadow moved, gliding across the wall without touching the floor. It stopped by the chair, and for a moment, I swore I saw a face pale, eyeless, with a mouth stretched into a scream. The whispers reached a fever pitch, and objects in the room began to tremble: the chair, Mia's phone, even the dust on the floor. Jake was shouting something, but I couldn't hear him over the noise. My vision blurred, and I felt a pull, like the room itself was trying to swallow me. "Elliot," the whispers said. "Clear as day, you found me." That's when Mia screamed. She was staring at her phone, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold it. "Look," she cried, shoving the screen toward us. The video she'd been recording showed the room, but it wasn't empty. Dozens of figures stood around us, pale, translucent, their mouths moving in sync with the whispers. Clara's name was on their lips, and their eyes, hollow and black, were fixed on us. I felt my knees give out, and I sank to the floor, Sarah collapsing beside me. The shadow by the chair grew larger, its form solidifying into a woman's shape, gaunt, with matted hair and hands that reached toward us. "We need to break the circle," Jake shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. He was pointing at the symbols on the walls, the ones glowing brighter now. "They're keeping her here." I didn't know if he was right, but we had no other options. I grabbed the crowbar from the floor, my hands slick with sweat, and swung at the wall. The plaster cracked, and the glow flickered. The whispers turned to shrieks, high and piercing, like nails on a chalkboard. Jake joined me, smashing at the symbols, while Mia and Sarah huddled together, sobbing. With every hit, the air grew lighter, the whispers quieter. The shadow Clara, I was sure of it, lunged toward us, her hands clawing at the air. But as the last symbol crumbled, the glow died, and the room fell silent. The door creaked open, and the shadow vanished, leaving only a faint echo of her voice. "You'll come back," she whispered, and then nothing. We ran. We didn't stop to grab our gear, didn't look back. We stumbled through the basement, up the stairs, and out into the freezing night. The car was a blur as we piled in, Jake flooring it down the dirt road. Sarah was shaking, her face buried in her hands. Mia was clutching her phone, muttering about deleting the footage. I just stared out the window, my heart still racing, the whisper of my name lingering in my ears. Back at our apartment, we tried to make sense of it. Mia uploaded the video to a private drive, too shaken to share it publicly. We found more about Clara Henshaw online, a troubled woman, admitted in 1920 for hysteria. The staff had feared her, claiming she spoke to things that weren't there. The official report said she died in a fire, but the whisper room wasn't mentioned anywhere. We think the symbols were part of a ritual, maybe to trap her spirit after whatever happened to her. The chair, the scratches, the whispers, it all pointed to something darker than a simple death. A hidden crime, maybe, or something the asylum wanted buried. I haven't slept right since. Every creak in the apartment, every shadow in the corner, makes my heart race. Sarah won't talk about it, and Jake pretends he's fine, but I see the fear in his eyes. Mia keeps the video locked away, but she's been getting weird messages on her phone, static-filled voicemails with no caller ID, whispering her name. I don't know if Clara's still out there waiting, or if we broke whatever held her. But I can't shake her last words. "You'll come back." If you're watching this, maybe you've been to a place like Danvers. Maybe you've heard something you can't explain, a whisper, a name, a voice that knows you. Drop it in the comments. I need to know we're not alone in this, because deep down, I'm terrified she's right. I'm terrified we'll go back.